By 1900, when he was 21, Josif Djugashvili had turned from a life of religion to a life of violence. For the next 15 years, he lived the life of an active revolutionary, robbing banks and confiscating payrolls at gunpoint to raise money to overthrow the Tsar. In 1910, Josif chose a new name, Stalin, which in Russian means man of steel. During this period, Stalin was arrested 8 times by Tsarist police and each time deported to remote rural areas in Siberia.
He was always a loner, a very bitter and unpleasant person. You find this in memoirs of other revolutionaries who shared exile with him, that he never took part in their social activities. He was always apart and bitter and nasty.
Stalin soon caught Lenin's eye as an effective and ruthless revolutionary. During the Russian Revolution in October 1917, Stalin wasn't a major figure, but he was ambitious and determined to rise to the top of the Communist Party. Stalin had defined himself as a revolutionary and knew exactly what he wanted in life. But Hitler was still searching for himself, and in 1907 moved to Vienna to pursue a career in art. In Vienna, Adolf rented a tiny, bug-infested room here on 29 Stumpergasse. Living on a small inheritance controlled by his mother, he pursued his dream of entering the Academy of Fine Arts. But his dream was shattered when his mother, Clara, died after a long and painful struggle with breast cancer.
Because of the extreme closeness between Hitler and his mother, he became non-functional. He was devastated by her death.
After his mother's death, to support himself, Adolf sold his paintings on the street. It is interesting that he only painted landscapes, never people. Two years in a row, Hitler applied to and was rejected by the prestigious Academy of Fine Arts. Because he was unable to draw humans, the Academy told him that he had no aptitude for painting. He decided he was rejected because several of the admissions committee were Jewish. Vienna was his first exposure to Jews from Eastern Europe. Hitler became attracted to the rhetoric in racist, anti-Semitic newspapers and pamphlets. It was during this period that he first became intrigued by the idea of a pure German master race. After his rejection by the Academy and the death of his mother, Hitler was miserable in Vienna, lonely and poor, lacking direction. Finally, in 1914, with the outbreak of World War I, Hitler enlisted in the army and found his identity in battle, carnage, and death. For the first time in his life, Hitler was happy, felt at home, that he belonged.
In his army service, Hitler was the happiest he was at any time in his life. The sanctioned killing that he was entitled to engage in as a soldier gave an outlet for the first time to the murderous rage that had grown in him from treatment by his father.
Hitler served as a courier and experienced his first real success in life when he was awarded the Iron Cross First Class, rare for a corporal.
Hitler's experience in World War I, the fact that he survived 50 battles in which his own regiment was wiped out over and over, replenished and replenished and wiped out again and again, confirmed his belief that he was chosen by destiny for a magnificent role in history.
When Germany signed the armistice on November the 11th in 1918, Hitler was enraged. He pledged to avenge those who betrayed the fatherland, in his view, the communists and the Jews. The year 1924 was pivotal for Stalin. Fate intervened and gave him an opportunity to seize power. In 1924, Lenin had suffered a series of strokes. Knowing his death was imminent, Lenin warned the party to beware of Stalin.
Lenin saw that something was wrong with this man. He saw that he was a problematic personality and that he was a dangerous person to achieve high office, and especially the very high top office that he, Lenin, had held as the recognized supreme leader of the Bolshevik Party and therefore of the Soviet state.
But it was too late. In May, Lenin died, and Stalin immediately began jockeying for power. Driven by ambition, he outmaneuvered and intimidated potential rivals, using ruthless agents to do his dirty work.
The system of agents around him who were constantly eliminating any potential political opponents was itself paranoid. The core, the center of the paranoia was Stalin himself, but he managed to recruit people who thought like him, people who saw enemies everywhere.
Stalin once said, to choose one's enemy, to prepare every detail of the blow, to slake an implacable vengeance, and then go to bed. There is nothing sweeter in the world.
The symptoms of paranoia appeared relatively early, not only during his dictatorship, but even before. The famous neurologist Vladimir Bekhterev actually examined Stalin in 1927 and diagnosed him as paranoid. A few hours later, Bekhterev died in mysterious circumstances. I should emphasize that this was not amateur psychohistory, this was a professional diagnosis.
The same cruelty and sadism of Stalin's political life dominated his family life, especially his relations with his second wife, Nadia.
His relation to this particular woman was terrible. He abused her, both psychologically and physically.
Nadia was much younger, 17 when he was 40. She bore him 2 children, a son, Vasily, and a daughter, Svetlana. Stalin had another son, Yakov, from his first wife, Yekaterina, who died of typhoid in 1907, the same year that Hitler's mother died. He also humiliated and insulted his sons. Vasily became an alcoholic, and Yakov once tried to commit suicide.
His abuse as a child was transmitted in the form of his abuse to his own children.
Nadia was a good mother, both to her own children and to her stepson, Yakov.
She was a member of a old Bolshevik family in Leningrad, and for him, he was one of the leaders of the revolution. And she looked up to him and had great belief in him.
But Stalin was notoriously cruel to Nadia, insulting her in front of other people.
Little by little, she became aware of his personal defects, his defects of character, which were shown in many ways at home.
On November the 8th, 1932, Nadia and Stalin had a violent argument at a party in Moscow. He became furious and half drunk, threw cigarette butts in her face. She got up and left, returning to their Kremlin apartment. The next morning, Nadia was found dead, shot in the heart.
He either drove her to suicide or killed her himself. Historians have not been able to agree on exactly what happened, but hers was not a natural death.
According to Svetlana, her mother, Nadia, left Stalin a letter which was full of personal and political reproaches, and that he went into a rage as a result of this letter. And when the funeral came about, he walked up to her coffin and then pushed it away. He never went to her grave at the Novodevichy Cemetery.
Hitler's relationships with women were equally troubled. While he both revered and idealized women, he also treated them with contempt and degraded them.
Because of his extreme closeness to his mother, together with his father's extreme brutality, he grew up with what is typical in the circumstances, an obsession with women and sex, together with extreme inhibition.